Hi, I'm Joe Sartor. I was born June 25th, 1923. So I'm a healthy 92-year-old woman. And I do mean old because I now use a cane a great deal. I had English parents. They both came over from England to Canada. My dad was in World War II, like in the Army or the National Guard that Canada might have. He served in there and was discharged, honorably discharged, with because of shell shock. But he was pretty clever too. He said, I can't go back. He would lose his mind. So when the nurse put the thermometer in his mouth, he quietly put it on the steam radiator. When she came back, she said, oh, you can't go home. We're going to get you discharged. You can't go be in service. So that's the way he got out. Would you call it cheating? I don't know. But anyway, he met my mother. They became engaged. He came back to Canada, where he had, and the only reason he got to Canada was as a 17-year-old, he said he would indenture himself to a farmer and worked off the payment of his trip, or passage, as they called it in those days. Then my mother came, and they were married in 1919. She wore a blue chiffon dress. She said it was so cold, but then that was Winnipeg, Canada, and I was born there. So when I was 2, we came to Detroit because the jobs were better. That's where I grew up. I went to the same school, the whole 8 years, went to the high school, and my brothers and sisters went to the same Catholic grade school, Jesu. My high school was Immaculata Catholic High School. My sister followed along and went to this, 2 sisters went along to the same high school. Well, I came out of high school. I said, I don't want anything to do with college. I've had 12 years of schooling. That's it. Yes, I was a rebellious teenager, but I really couldn't be too rebellious because I went to an all-girls school, and the only boy I knew was the fellow across the street who invited me to his prom. I didn't even go to my own prom. So anyway, when I got started working, in those days you had to wear a hat and you had to have gloves on to be interviewed, to be formally interviewed. But I finally got a job and went to various jobs, but my heart was in teaching dancing. In fact, my parents took me to Massachusetts to visit my mother's sister, and I got out of the car and said, I'm going to be a dancing teacher. My mother was very upset. She said, can't you say hello to your Auntie Kath? So anyway, I did become a teacher at Arthur Murray School. And I had a wonderful time. It was 14 months of wonderful dancing. We went out to a nightclub at night. I'd come home at 1 in the morning, taking a bus, and I wasn't fearful. I prayed all the way home, but I wasn't fearful, not in those days. So I started teaching dancing at our Young People's Club. We were young fellows and girls. Most of the fellows were returning from the war. And that's where a lot of romances bloomed, a lot of marriages, in fact. So I met my husband through his sister. She was having a New Year's Eve party, and I happened to have a date. If he hadn't been an Irishman, I don't think I would have dated him, because he had to kiss me when it came to midnight, every time zone, right across to Hawaii. And so we stayed. We had a pastor come to the party, and but we stayed until it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and we went to the first Mass. Now, when we had been there, the party, it was all very formal and casual. Well, we did look a little tired. We weren't drunks. We weren't drunk. but we were very tired. So that was a big thing in my life. However, I did meet my husband at this party, and he looked scowling. He was mad because his girlfriend got sick, and he had to drive the other couple in the back seat who were having fun and laughter all the way to the party. He didn't have any fun at all. So I felt sorry for him, but I said, is this the man that my girlfriends have been talking about? They said he was such a gentleman. His hat was slouched over his face. And I said, he's more like a gangster. So that we started dating, fell in love, married him June 17th, 1950. It would have been 65 years this past June 15th, 2015. So I'll stop there. Okay.
Perfect.
My teeth are rattling. I wish you could hear it.
Oh, yeah?
And you might have to redo it.
Oh, no.
You know, so I can put some glue in. I can go and get some glue if you want.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
I can
Or
go get
maybe
it
you can just tell Val and she can run and get it.
Okay. All right.
Where
Go
is it?
on the counter, kitchen counter. There's Polydent and something else, little tubes, I think.
Okay.
It's in the corner of the kitchen counter.
Okay, perfect.
That's good.
Do you want some water or anything?
Oh, I'll take a little sip of
Okay.
water. Yeah, a little glass.
Nona, you're so
I think-
funny. Oh my gosh.
Well, you said funny things.
Yeah.
I don't know what else is funny.
Do you know what hospital you were born in, or were you born in a
Yes.
hospital?
Yes, I was born in a hospital, Misericordia, in Winnipeg. And I took my mother there, 1998, something like that. And we went past that hospital, and my mother was very formal, and she said, "No, don't get talking to the taxi driver." And she did all the talking. I thought, Mother, say what you mean, you know? But she had memories there. She played tennis. She worked in a munitions factory, and she approved copy for the newspaper. She approved our compositions for school and would tell us, this is right, this is wrong. And so we got to like English, you know. So, but
Do you have any fun stories from when you were in school? Like elementary school, or what kind of games did you play in elementary school?
well, we went out on the playground. We went on the playground at lunchtime and played. And I was given a nickel every day for milk. But I had one of my classmates came from a well-to-do home, and every day she had a quarter. Oh, how I wished I had a quarter. But I was just 7 years old then. So, but eventually, but I did get some money. I used to take my dad's beer bottles to the store, and I would get a 2-cent square of chocolate. Well, I didn't cheat because I remembered every 2-cent bottle that I took. And when my mother's purse was on the table, I would do my various things that I did do for her. I would put the money back in her purse. So that's a good memory. And she never knew it until I was out of the house, no longer there. So you've been recording, haven't you?
Yeah. Did you ever beat any kids up for lunch money?
Oh my goodness, no, never heard of such a thing. We had my own nickel and my own sandwich. That was it.
What was your favorite kind of sandwich?
Peanut butter and jelly, I guess. We weren't well off, My dad had a job with us that didn't pay much. He took out a $200 loan and paid it off in small increments. When it was all paid off, we'd take out another $200 loan. That's how we survived. So we led a simple life, very simple life. So I can't remember. We would have meat and potatoes and a vegetable. I was the babysitter. I didn't learn to cook. And I admired the girls who were able to be around their mother learning to cook. I did cook one meal for a boyfriend I was dating at the time. But I cooked the pork chops so hard, we had to go and get sharp knives. I was so embarrassed. It was like I was cutting the cutting board. It was terrible. I couldn't wait for him to go home. So, anyway, that was the only meal I cooked. And then I married a man who had a wonderful mother cooking German food. Oh, it must have been a shock. And we ate an awful lot of hamburger helper, but he never complained. And I did learn to cook pot roast and pork chops in a gravy. And then we had to be big bowls for the family as it was growing. So I do remember one time I went down to the basement to do a little bit of washing just to get it started. When the kids were screaming at the top. This is Maureen and Tom, my two oldest. And I went upstairs and the kitchen was full of smoke. I said, what on earth? I called the fire department immediately. And I put something in the broiler and forgot about it. So I pulled it out and I got the kids out. The fire engine came, the neighbors came down. Do you need any help? I said, no. But the smoke in the house was terrible. We had to have the kitchen repainted. But I never used the boiler again. It was quite a scene, quite a scene. And of course, with the kids, I took them to the hospital. Dick, one of my boys, had to go for emergency 2 times. The first time he swallowed too many aspirin, so we had to get, what's that?
Oh, sorry.
I think he's trying to block the wind.
Yeah, I'm trying to block the wind because it's windy and I'm nervous the microphone's going to get messed up.
Oh.
You can just keep talking.
Do you want to hold that up over here?
Oh, no, no. I think it's okay. There's not really much we can do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he went to the hospital twice?
I took Dick to the hospital, and I guess they said, we can't get it up. So they said, give him a glass of chocolate milk. Now that's what my neighbor said. She knew the trick. So the doctor said, take him home, give him a glass of chocolate milk. Well, it was so chocolatey, you could have sat on it. And he drank it down, and I waited and waited, and up came Niagara Falls. Luckily, we had a linoleum floor at the time. So that was a savior. Then the next time, he did something else. So he took him to Mount Carmel Hospital. And they said we had to pump his stomach. And he came out white but with a sucker. I was furious, absolutely furious. I had died 1,000 deaths waiting for him, thinking that he might die, thinking this, thinking that. And here he came out smiling and sucking his sucker. Oh, it was quite a moment, emotional moment. So I don't remember anything. Oh, yes, Mark was another one. He was fooling around, riding his bicycle up and down driveways, and a neighbor called and said, your son has been hit by a car. Immediately, I went into hysterics. Well, I don't know, somebody took me over there just a couple of blocks away. Or I walked over there, and they said, he's all right, he's all right. So we got him to the hospital, got him in a cast, And I said, Lord, this guy is crazy. I've got to do something. I prayed all summer long that he would not have his arm get well until he was ready to go to school. And the Lord answered my call. So the doctor said, I can't figure out why he's not healing. He was healing, and I knew why, but it was very slow healing. So that was, I can't remember if my girls had any troubles. Oh, yes, Tom, the second child, the oldest boy, wanted to go on his scout trip. Fine. But they went down a hill they weren't supposed to go down. His friend leaned to the right, he leaned to the left, and they hit a tree dead on. And he broke his leg. So my boys were wild, adventurous guys. I don't know if that goes with their sex or just boys. So that's as far as the injuries. I can't remember any of the others having the girls, the four girls. They would borrow each other's clothes. And I would hear this terrible, piercing scream coming from upstairs. She took my blouse. She did this. Oh, it was fantastic. But they all grew up. They were all friends to each other. But I'll tell you, we had so many dolls that I spread them from one end of the room to the other. There must have been 32 dolls. So it was quite an adventure with the kids. I do remember taking Maureen to the hospital to get her tonsils out, but the doctor pricked her ear and he said she's a bleeder, as she cannot have her tonsils out. So we went home. To make her feel good, we stopped at a dime store. Well, Jane was just all over the place. She was only 2 years old, 2.5, and I let her have a doll. Maureen was satisfied, Therese was satisfied with some little trinket, but Jane had this 2-foot doll. When I went to take it and give it back to the salesperson, I heard a scream, and everybody in the store looked. I said, I'll buy it, I'll buy it, I'll buy it. So it was named Mary. She has Mary to this day. She's completely bald. I don't know, she has, I think one leg is missing, maybe an eye, but Mary is still a part of her life. Therese and Maureen both got big dolls, but I don't know what happened to them. But Mary is very much alive. Oh, okay.
All right, hold on 1 second. I'm going to adjust this.
I happened to be, now you're not recording this.
I just started.
Oh, okay. All right. This is a story that can't go in there.
Oh, yeah? What is it? I'm not recording, I swear.
No, you said you were recording.
He is.
No.
Maybe you could tell us about how your family did birthdays.
Oh, we did birthdays?
Yeah.
Well, it was just a simple cake, and we would have some presents. I don't know if my brothers and sisters and I gave each other's presents, but for my parents' 25th anniversary, Mother had some neighbors come in, and I bought her some stemware. I put it on my charge. I'm so proud to have a charge. And she had no stemware to serve the people a little wine. So, and then for Christmas, I bought the matching cocktail stemware. And I was real tickled of that because she couldn't afford it. She would go to the local theater once in a while with a neighbor, and they'd come home with a dish or a cup or something. And we filled our kitchen cabinets with theater china. And I didn't like seeing a whole bunch of different colors, but I would always organize them exactly according to their system, their type. And being particular has been, particular has been one of my things. And I remember that I had a job with Kresge, their main office, but I loved pickles for some reason. The same thing happened when I was pregnant. I had 6 jars of pickles when I was pregnant. But one day, in going for my pickles, I knocked it over in the file drawer. Luckily, I was at the back of the building, but you could smell this aroma of pickles going right through the whole building. My boss never said a word, not a word, but there were no pickles after that. So that was the one thing I remembered about work. So it was wonderful getting out on my own, doing what I had to do, and taking the bus every day. We only had one car in the family, and my dad had it for his job. So I went to, my first job was subbing for a secretary for a man who was a dermatologist. He was all pockmarked from the x-ray they had given. There wasn't the barrier of lead or whatever they use today. So he was pockmarked, but he was a kind man. And for 2 weeks, everything went fine. But one day, he had to take a cyst out of a man's head. He was quite bald, so he had the man sit on a stool, put his back to the table, and he inserted a knife, and out popped this cyst, this white ball. And he said, "Joe, go and get that." Well, I'll tell you, I was just petrified. But when he walked out, I covered it with paper and got rid of this cyst. And that was the one experience I had with this doctor. I'm glad the gal came back. I'd had enough. So in my work, I enjoyed, I think, I did learn to smoke. For 2 weeks. One pack of cigarettes lasted me 2 weeks. The last day I said, I can't take it anymore. So I lit up, and it was like tasting straw. I said, this is the end. So it was the end. I never smoked again. So that's the end of that story. But I've had the most fun, I think, at Arthur Murray's. The only thing is, the group decided on a Sunday to go out to some place where there were horses. And they said, now, you put your foot in the stirrup, the left foot, and you swing your right foot over. Well, I swung both feet over and landed on the ground. But I wasn't going to give up. I got on the horse, and oh boy, it was up. I felt like a queen. But it was very unsure because I was used to steadiness from being around me. So that was the only time we did that. But with the group that I had at church, we went out and we went to some place where they had square dancing. And we loved that. And at church, I took my turn helping with the library that they had. And I picked up some records for you, CDs today are for you. So I took these records and started playing them and working out on them. And in came a bunch of kids from some thing they had been doing. So I said, well, come here and do this. Well, there were 8 of us, so we started square dancing. The next week they said, well, let's do it next week. So we did that again, and we kept on doing it until the crowd got to be about 40. And then I started teaching my Arthur Murray dances. So it was one of the most most beautiful experiences I had in my life, because I'd never had much confidence. And so teaching these people who did many things, had nice jobs, I felt very powerful, and my confidence came in teaching them dancing. Of course, I came down to earth, but and we had various different things. One time I said, why don't we do a dance macabre? That's the dance of death, I believe. And so we came down the stairs at the back of the auditorium, and we all had white sheets. We were completely covered in white. And I choreographed something, and we did various arm movements, leg movements to this music, and then finally walked off. Well, I'm the leader. I'm doing the opposite. I'm so nervous. So I just said, that's the end. I didn't choreograph, didn't do anything like that again. But it was a nice experience, real nice. So that's all.
That sounds great.
What was your favorite kind of dancing?
A rumba. Oh, rumba just sets me off. When I put on Lawrence Welk, 7 o'clock Saturday night on PBS. Oh, just put that rumba music on, and I'm skimming all over the place. Of course, I get out of breath, but I just love the rumba. The Latin music is so alive, and so it's been my favorite. But the thing of it is, I tried to teach my future husband the waltz, but he did the 4-count foxtrot in the waltz. And I said, Joe, either you give up this fellow because he's driving you nuts, or you marry him. Make up your mind, one way or the other. I decided the waltz in foxtrot time was okay, and married him. What is the question?
You got the list.
Oh, yeah. What were some hobbies that you liked to do?
Oh, some hobbies. When I was growing up, I loved making a scrapbook of movie stars. And I don't know where we got the pictures. It must have been the newspapers. Or we got them from movie magazines. Now, when we had a lot of fun gluing these in. But I'll tell you, my mother was always on watch. She checked under our mattresses to make sure there were no movie magazines or true confessions, or I did this, or I did that. She checked under all our mattresses. We had a mom who was going to make us go on the straight and narrow, and she did. So, another question?
Do you have any of those scrapbooks now?
Pardon me?
Do you still have any of those scrapbooks?
No, I don't know. I think I used to save bus transfers, programs from plays I went to, but I most of all went to dances. A woman by the name of Duncan had some African American and Indonesian. Oh no, they were, just a moment. They were from South America and from the Caribbean, and she put on these dances. Oh my lands, they were wonderful. And those dances still continue in modern dance today, but this was very native-like. And they talk about the Voodoo Dolls. I also heard on the TV years ago that in order to make a zombie, they would bury somebody in the ground for several days. They would have a little oxygen. They would get some air. But when they dug them up, their brain was partially dead because of the lack of the necessary air. And so in these dance programs that I saw, I would see zombies walking around. So I understood then how they arrived at them in real life. So I attended several of those. And I love ballets. In fact, I went to one ballet and I snuck behind the scenes to see the prima ballerina, and I started talking in a foreign language, and I was talking with an accent. I said, "Where did this come from?" But the mood was there, and oh, the ballet was beautiful. So, and I've enjoyed the Irish dancing. My mother taught me a simple step that I do to this day. I used to do it by standing in the middle of the room, but now I had it either onto the wash tub or the kitchen sink and do it, but I still do that Irish step. So that's...
Can you show us?
Pardon me?
Can you show us?
Well, it's pretty hard. I'll show you some of it. Valerie, you'll have to go with me.
Okay.
Okay. I'll go over here. All right, I'm going to go this way.
Okay.
All right, okay. Oh, step on my own foot.
It looks great. It looks great.
Okay, that's all I can remember.
That's great.
The memory is getting sparse.
That's great.
So, anyway, I did have I had ballet lessons, and we had a teacher at our high school. She and her husband came once a week. We learned archery and a little bit of dancing, tap dancing. Next week it might be fencing and ballet, but at least school was filling the requirement that there be a year of gym, so to speak. So I learned a little bit about the archery and fencing, and I loved the tap dancing. In fact, one summer my mother paid for me to take tap dancing lessons. It was over a theater where we used to walk through to see the movies, and so I had some dancing. But when I was 21, I took up seriously some dancing from a woman who had been all over the world. She had a trunk there with all these labels from the various countries. And then again, at 40, I told two of my girls, now you've never had a taste of ballet. Let's go. So at 40 years old, I took my last two girls and we learned a little ballet. One of my daughters, Jane, was offered to go to New York, but my mother said, I don't think she should go. So I said, okay, I'll trust your judgment. But she was very talented. And but the other girls, they went just to be kind to me or obedient, I don't know which. So, but at ballet, I still remember the 5 positions of the feet and the 5 positions of the arms. And I was very surprised to hear Alex Trevette on his program say the basis of ballet came from golf. I have not looked into that, but I just find that just fascinating. So.
What kind of stuff did you like to do with your friends?
What did I do with my friends?
Uh-huh.
Well, during high school, I played tennis. At night, when there weren't many cars going by, we had a street light right in front of our house, so we played tennis back and forth. But I went over to the University of Detroit. They have a tall clock, and I, I would bat my ball against the wall, and then occasionally I would go with my friend Joan, and we'd go to a court. It was very interesting. My mother played tennis after work on Saturday about 3 hours. Then on Sunday she played 3 hours again after church because she loved it. My dad played it too. I might still have the wooden rackets. Maybe not. Maybe they've been lost in the moving. But I would like to put those on the wall if I still have them. So, and now I'm very proud. My son Dick has taken up tennis, and his son has taken up tennis too. And so it's been handed down. But none of us went into sports. We were, we just didn't, our schools didn't have sport programs. So we just went along, did our homework. I didn't do my homework till 10 o'clock at night when everybody was asleep. Everybody. My dad retired early, so did my mother. And it had to be absolutely quiet, nothing, because my brain didn't work until 10 o'clock at night. So, and I got, my scores were average. I got an A in courtesy, an A in study. So I did get some A's, but never an A in subject, maybe a B. Racking the brain for the 2 years of Latin, algebra, and geometry was somewhat difficult, but I got through them. I did pass them. But I switched from a college course to business and took up typing and shorthand. So that's where I ended my career in school. So that's, I don't know what else there is to say.
Yeah.
What's the scariest thing you've ever done?
Oh, the scariest thing was going down, when I went to visit Richard in Utah, and we went down into an Indian settlement, and I had to go down a ladder. That was the scariest thing, because I'm afraid of heights. Also, another time, we went on the Colorado River, where they had the boats. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the boats, but you could sleep. They're houseboats. You could rent those. And you could go down. They had a motor, but you could also float. But there was a pool. And Richard had broken his leg. And he says, I'm going swimming. So he took a black garbage bag, wrapped it up with duct tape. But the thing of it is, the cast made his leg float on the top of the water, and he drowned almost the rest of him. But we floated along, and it was a deep pool, but I didn't mind because he was there to rescue me. How could he rescue me when he had to rescue himself? I don't know. So those were the 2 times that were the scariest for me. So, oh, I know. Something that really amazing what happened. I went to Alaska, and we went up to Mount Denali. Coming back, we were on the right side of the road looking down this sheer cliff. I just said my last prayers many a time coming home. But I watched a rainbow coming down, and it landed on a triangle rock. So I say, That was God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. I had never seen anything like it, and never again have I seen anything like that. I wanted to yell out to everybody, look, we've seen the end of the rainbow. So the white, red, yellow, and blue shown on this rock. But I'm a little reticent to speak up. But sometimes I do. And I've spoken up for the unborn. That is my big passion, saving the lives of babies who should be alive. There are 55 million babies that have been exterminated. And we said we would never have anything again like Hitler. But we have another extermination in our own country. Makes me very sad, because I love this country. When I took out my own citizenship papers at 21, I think, at the urging of my supervisor, I had a beautiful teacher who told me about the history of this country, about the people who had fought for the freedom and who had died for it. And here, now we are killing people without them defending anything. So God will have his way, because there are 55 million people in heaven. How many New Yorks or Chicagos is that?
How did you get connected with the Right to Life?
I started it here how I started with, some woman, I don't know where I met her, said, you know, the children are going to be taught sex education in the public schools. I said, what? My kids were in Catholic school. And so we went to the meetings where they showed these films. They showed a little kindergarten child being explained, Mommy and Daddy are having sex in bed. That just about did it to me. And I became interested in this. I don't know what I did, but then from there, this woman who told me about about the Seekers, they called it, I got into the abortion thing. I used to go to the state fair in Detroit, and I would serve 3 hours. Once each time they had the get together, and we would have a booth. We would answer the questions. So then we didn't have anything here. When we moved here in '76, I said, "Where's the Right to Life department?" They said, "We don't have one." So the next year, a woman and I stood outside just handing envelopes, and we handed out little brochures, and our agreement was that we would pick up any that were on the ground, and we found only one. So then from there, people started volunteering, and other people got it going. So I feel that I am in the background now. There are good workers who are pushing. We've got to save babies. And I saw a little baby at church yesterday. Her name was Josephine. My name too. And I thought, this is a living doll. How could anybody abort somebody like that? I'm sorry. You don't know. I was given by a college 2 tall jars, I guess they were 5-gallon jars, of babies, fully formed babies. One was 6 weeks old. You could see the beginning of the eyes, but the 3-month-old had fingernails, had eyelashes, eyebrows. I don't know if they were aborted or if they had been taken because of some circumstances. But I returned those. But I took it to a meeting. There was what I was fighting for. And that's Alan. So I continued. Having 7 children, having 3 miscarriages, how could I not fight to save babies? How can't I? I must. I do very little, but I do what I can. Amen. Yeah. You know, God's going to speak. He's going to speak. I said, we're Israel, Israelites. We're lost in the desert. Materialism, secularism. We're lost in the new, unholy Trinity. Me, myself, and I. We must get back. We must get on our knees, fasting, which is very hard for me to do because I love to eat. Not a lot, but I love to eat. But I pray, God take care of America. So, that's all. Oh, I love this country so much. But it's kicking. It's spitting in the Lord's face. Spitting in his face. He will speak one of these days. He will speak. There. That's it. So, the end.
Well, it's so great that you didn't just talk about it though. You actually did something. A lot of people are passionate about something and they talk about it, but you and your friend actually started something.
Yes,
so.
and you know, your dad said he's going to pay 450 tables for his table. So this time I won't be able to fill my table with starters. I've got to go out and get people. But I give them 450. That's my own donation the whole year. So that goes out in a check from this September pay. And we will sit close to the front. Isn't that nice?
Oh, yeah.
So, so people are still fighting. And we have to fight. Because, like I said, the unholy Trinity, and I just heard this the other day, me, myself, and I am now God. I will decide. I will do this. I. God said, I will wait. I will wait. Some man named John, I heard this on a call-in show, is predicting a catastrophe. This will be tremendous. It's a catastrophe. But this priest said, no, you've got to take it easy. Is this one a person of prayer? Is he, or, is he, just a fly-by-night? Got to be careful. But when you see the sacredness of light, and this little girl yesterday, she was like the dolls that I used to give my girls. Full cheeks. I think the mother was nurse. She's got a nurse because that's the way and Adeline looks. Marcy is still nursing her. Fat cheeks. Oh my. Just and the smell of a baby. A man named H.C.L. Jackson had a column in the Detroit News decades ago, and he said, "What is the nicest smell to you?" And a lot of people said the smell of a newborn baby. It is special. It's a special treat. So, anyway, did you know that I was there for Jacob's delivery?
Really?
Was it Jacob's? Or David? It must have been Jacob's. No, David's. And he peed right in the doctor's eye. Oh, and the doctor says, I don't. He says, I've had that happen before. And I put Tom on the bed. I said, this is your new baby brother. And she looked at him, and I was thinking she was definitely peed right in line. She didn't know what. I just wiped it down and then took her to the bathroom and washed her face off. But she didn't know what had happened. Where did this rain suddenly come from? Oh, my. Oh, brother. Such is life.
Mm-hmm.
Things happen. And, okay.
We only have about 10 minutes left till my thing dies.
Oh, does it?
So is there anything left that maybe is fresh on your mind that you really want to talk about today?
What was some of the questions?
Most of them we talked about already.
Our children?
Maybe, well, we have on here, but they can all wait till next time, but maybe holiday traditions.
Like Christmas or Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay.
World War II, I don't know.
Well, it's short because we were just our family, but my dad met a friend in Canada. They went over to Europe together, and then both men were engaged, and my mother came back with May. We called her Auntie May and Uncle Wally, because we had no relatives. They were all in Canada, England. So, but my mother said they were down in the lower part of the boat, and Auntie May, all she did was throw up. But my mother would go up decks so that she would have better, stability. But anyway, we would gather. I wouldn't tell that, but we would gather on Christmas night. Auntie May and Uncle Wally would come over with their two kids, and we would go there. And so it was very nice. No, that was the only time we gave Christmas presents. One year, my mother and dad both had the flu, so she wants her picture taken. They had the flu, so we kids had to go down and open up presents by ourselves. We saved some of them till later. In the afternoon, they felt better. But that was the momentous time. But holiday tradition, we always polished the silver. And it was silver that left a tarnish on your hands. We had black hands when we were through. And we would have silver candlesticks, and we would have a silver platter. She would bring in a pudding, and she put whiskey or brandy on it, and she set it on fire. It would burn all off, but we loved seeing that scene where the whiskey or brandy would burn off. So it had no alcohol then. But, and I rarely ate it. It was just kind of pudding-like. I didn't like pudding at all. So it was very simple. Oh, and then...
All right, hold on 1 second.
Then Dad would take us around to an area called Palmer Park, and the people, it was rich homes, and he would drive up and down the streets, and we'd see how fancy they had made their homes and their land. And now everybody has something, or almost everybody has something celebrating Christmas. We have a crib scene that we put out. So we all have lights galore. So, and the little twinkle lights are so pretty on the trees. So 1 year I had a tree upstairs and one downstairs rather. So we would decorate, and it was a custom in my parents' home that we'd only decorate the day before on Christmas Eve. but I have found that I need to do it a little bit ahead of time. So I break with that tradition. I don't know if my brothers and sisters keep that tradition. So, but anyway, that we didn't do much otherwise. I don't think we did anything for July the 4th. Maybe we had a flag outside. I'm not sure. We lived very simply. The British people don't eat fancy meals, or didn't at that time. So we would just have meat and potatoes and a vegetable. And my brother Jim looked at the dessert one time. He says, "Oh, is that what we're going to have?" And she said, "Yes, that's what we're going to have for dessert." That was just a plain pudding. And during the war, we would have a block of margarine the size of a pound of butter. And it would be sitting on the table, warming up. Then, there'd be a little yellow packet of powder. We'd go to bed, and the next day we would have a pound of butter, because we hated the thought that we were going to eat this white stuff. It wasn't lard, but that was the beginning of margarine. So, and during the war, can you believe it? I sewed up the seams of the runs in my stockings. It was very acceptable that if you sewed up the runs in your stockings. So that's one of the things. And I knew some servicemen, so I would go downtown after work, and I would send them a letter. They would have envelopes as frank and cedar, and I had the serviceman's address with me, and I'd send them out. So to the fellows that I knew, I felt that I could do something for the war. But then I gave 8 pints of blood. As a result, I became anemic, and I still fight that. But I take iron pills and eat like liver sausage, because that has iron. Or I might eat a dark chocolate candy bar. I like that the best of all, because that has high chocolate. So, but I was glad to give that the blood for the war effort. So. Next door to it.
Oh, really?
My dad took the ashes from the furnace. In those days, you had a coal bin where the men would come. You'd open this big metal door, and they'd dump the coal in it. Well, Dad would put it in the furnace. He would get up in the morning and make a fire, so we went to a warm house. In fact, during the war, he got up and he made the porridge for the men. They called him Father Atkinson. So, but he used these cold ashes. He'd hauled them out, maybe later in the day after he got home from work, and he made a little hill and covered it with snow during the winter. We didn't have the heat then in the air, and that we had cold winters, and we would slide down across the thing down to the sidewalk.